So good evening, and thank you, Noach, and thank you, Shmuel, and thank you, Yedidia, for the opportunity and for this important presentation. And I assume all would agree with me that being here today, considering the current situation in Israel, probably makes it even more important. And as we've heard from Shlomo, and as we've read in the research relating to those ideas now, we need to take a note of also the very unique and unprecedented state of what I would relate to as national emergency here in Israel, and intensifying social rift, both at home as well as a growing threat and disintegration to our relationship with world Jewry, which is something that is very much on our concern, as well as issues around our overall security. So hopefully in the last 24 hours, we may be moving to somewhat of maybe constructive path. I would be very modest in saying that, but we're seeing also from the data that it's influenced also by the current moment. When I look at the data from our perspective as the Jewish Agency, I draw two important questions that stand out from the data. And those are around the fact that when we talk about Jewish and democratic state, as if it was a self-explanatory concept, we understand that it's not. It surely does not necessarily being interpreted by all the different respondents in a similar way. And what is democracy and what is being Jewish is not necessarily agreed upon. We see that most Israelis, right-wing and left-wing, secular and religious, wants both a Jewish and democratic states. But when we dive into the details, we understand that it's more complicated than what it appears. And apparently they understand it very differently. While 94% of right-wing voters do say they want a democratic state, they tend to understand democracy in a very narrow way. They think it refers mostly to voting and not to civic and human rights as well. We can say that they share the concept of a democratic state with the left center, but not in the same way, whereby the secular voters believe that it's mostly about tolerance and human rights. The same goes when we look at the importance of a Jewish state. Here again, the notion that a majority of Jews want a Jewish state hides a deep disagreement on what Jewish means. We see that 62% of Jewish Israelis and Arabs see the Jewish state as that of the Jewish people, where most religious and Haredi Israelis see it as that of a Jewish religion. And namely, some see Jewish as a shared culture and identity, while others see Jewish as observance of halacha. So again, very different concept indeed. And it made me curious to say, if we were to run this specific survey among world Jewry, we would probably get yet another variation of how they interpret what does it mean to be Jewish and what does it mean to be democratic. And so when I look at this data and I question, what should we draw from it, the Jewish Agency, which at the heart of our work is being this living bridge between world Jewry and Israel and world Jewry, in a way where we believe there is a clear role to communicate a more nuanced concept of Jewish and Jewish people to the Israeli public. We think we need to put much more emphasis on the peoplehood component, and we've invested in that intensively over the last couple of years in a whole range of programs and strategies, including with the mandatory school system, the Ministry of Education, including using our return shlichim, becoming social agents, change agents in the Israeli society after their eyes have been opened to what does it mean to be Jewish after spending time in Jewish communities, as well as supporting the growth and the expansion of the pluralistic streams in Israel. So in our capacity as somewhat bringing the voice of the Jewish people worldwide, we try to work to educate the entire Israeli society on the need to understand that a Jewish state is that of one that it will be welcoming the entire Jewish people and not just halachic and religiously centered. Hopefully by that, expanding the lens of embracing the fact that being Jewish could mean many more things. My question then becomes more complicated when I think, what role, or is there a similar role with regard to promoting the notion of a democratic, pro-democratic state and democratic education? And if we do believe that democracy should entail a commitment to human rights and toleration, what should be our role vis-a-vis posing this understanding to the Israeli public? I need to be honest, I'm not sure I have an answer as to us at the Jewish Agency having a role, but I definitely know from our conversation, ongoing conversations with our brothers and sisters in world Jewry communities, that this is something that is very much concerning them. And just in the same way that they're looking to influence and shape the fabric of the Israeli society around the interpretation of being Jewish to be a much pluralistic one, they're looking to see the Israeli society becoming more committed to those liberal and pro-democratic values, even before the last couple of weeks, definitely more so now. And so I think that becomes an interesting area for us to consider and to explore together with our partners in communities. What is it that we can do and should do together in order to promote and enable that interpretation of democratic Jew state become one that is more co-aligning with the value and the core beliefs of world Jewry, to then sustain and strengthen the connection between world Jewry and Israel, and make sure this does continue to serve as the homeland for all of the Jewish people, not just the citizens of Israel. And so this is work that still needs to be done, but this is kind of where I'm at with the data. And thank you. It was fascinating to read the research, and I think gives us a lot of food for thought moving forward.